Hello and welcome to the Purple Sector F1 podcast brought to you by Speedcafe. I'm your host, Ethan Fleetwood, and I'm joined today with the social media guru, new best friend of Valentino Rossi, Erin McCarthy. How are we?
I'm good, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. And on the other side of us, we've got Matt Koch, F1 editor of Speedcafe and best friends of all the Aussies. How are we?
I would say all the Aussies, probably most of the Aussies. I'm okay. I'm okay.
We're doing good.
Yeah, we're good. We are good. Let's move seamlessly on before people ask too many questions.
In today's episode, we're going to be covering all things on the swearing ban and new updates that have come from that, F1's flexi-wings, and much, much more, so stay tuned for that. Let's jump into it with the first thing. Matt, we have a bit of a fun segment to kick things off, don't we?
We do. So, yeah, I'm a journalist. I like news. It's my bread and butter. You're a social media content type guy. You like to scroll and exercise your thumbs. So I want to bring your world into mine, or my world into yours, one way or the other. Basically, let's go through the week or so worth of news, or the last week or so worth of news, in about the time it takes to set a qualifying lap. So this is sort of trying to set three purple sectors. That's the name of the podcast after all, Purple Sector. So let's see how good you are. I've prepared your little script. You've not seen this before with any luck. Otherwise you're cheating and you'll be thrown to the back of the grid with...
Don't tell the stewards, okay?
Yeah. Just watch your language if you go in there.
Yeah.
So
stay tuned.
You've got
for
about
that.
one qualifying lap worth of time.
Call it
about
90 seconds. Yeah. Okay.
To set a flying lap and bring everyone up into the last week of news.
Okay. Speaking of stewards, I'm going to be on the timer here.
All right, Mrs. FIA. All right, so we've got 90 seconds on the clock. The flying lap is ready to go. I'm as prepared as I can be. Erin's on the stopwatch, the FIA over there. Script next to me. I'm not really ready for this, but we're going to do it anyway. Alrighty, so...
All right, on the count of three. 3, 2, 1, go.
Lewis Hamilton's second week on the job with Ferrari ended in disaster after crashing during a private test in Spain. Little detail is known about the events of the crash, only that he hit the wall at turn 12 at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya circuit, home of the Spanish Grand Prix for now. Hamilton was taking part in a 3-day test in the 2023 spec car. It was dismissed by Ferrari as pretty normal, but did force the Scuderia to abandon running for the remainder of the day, despite the crash happening even before the lunch break. Hamilton and Ferrari were back in action this week, helping Pirelli develop its 2026 tyres. It was back in Spain for the running, sharing the track with McLaren, who had Lando Norris driving a 2022 spec car, modified to replicate the grip levels expected from the next generation of car. The 2026 rules will see a narrower front tyre, with Pirelli working on compounds and construction across the test. While Hamilton is Ferrari's headline signing, it has also picked up Sauber reject, Zhou Guanyu. The Chinese driver didn't have his contract renewed for 2025, as the now Audi-owned Sauber team instead elected to bring Nico Hülkenberg and F2 champion Gabriel Bortoleto on a multi-year deal. That spelled the end of the road for mate Valtteri Bottas and Zhou. Valtteri joining Mercedes now as a reserve driver, and Zhou inking a deal with Ferrari. The Chinese driver has also been linked to Cadillac. He's managed by Cadillac team principal Graham Loudon, and the brand sells more cars in China than in the United States. Bottas has also been linked with Cadillac Drive, but doesn't offer the same marketing value as Zhou does. I've lost where I'm at. Oh dear. The adopted Aussie's gig at Mercedes, meanwhile, will see him supporting George Russell and Kimi, acting largely as a driver coach for the young Italian. Elsewhere, the FIA has been in the headlines following a renewed emphasis on misconduct. Recently published 2025 International Sporting Code, $120,000 fines. Meanwhile, flexi-wings have been an issue, and McLaren DRS. I don't know. That was too long, Matt. I'll be honest. You've done a lot of writing there. No, did you think how long it would take me to read that?
I was hoping you'd run out of time just quietly.
Okay. Set up to fail is what I'm hearing.
That said, I mean...
GP2.
Anyone who's not a native English speaker that's listening to this, that's just going to be 90 seconds of noise.
I am native and I didn't get a word of that. All I heard was you slandering a few drivers along the way.
Yeah.
All right, Aaron, don't try and say that you're a native English speaker. I've heard some of the things you say, mate.
And none of that slander I had was in the script. That was you ad-libbing as you went along.
Whoa, Koch!
Who did you call a reject?
Joe, but he's not a reject.
He was rejected by Sauber.
I will... Chat, have a look at the screen right now. Look at this. Script. I did not say that off the whim, all right? For the record, the writer did the writing. All right. So that was pretty poor, but I was set up to fail, mate. Oh, yeah. Come on.
He actually got lost midway. He went off the
I
track.
had to scroll. It was that long. I lost my point.
It was like that lap of Kimi Räikkönen at Brazil the other year where he got lost and tried to take the shortcut back on and got stuck at the gate. I
All
kind
the
of feel
TV
you're out
Spa.
there looking for a way back onto the racetrack here.
Yeah.
You're one step away from Lance Stroll in a gravel trap.
No, I'm not talking about that. Oh, if you call me Lance Stroll, I'll take that as a compliment. So how'd I go? how were the timing sheets? Green, purple, yellow? I don't know.
I think you got off to a really fast start. It's got to be purple through the first sector or two, but then the checkered flag was waving before you completed your lap. So
that's fine, actually.
I was going to say, does that mean we let him finish? Or I don't know. Either way,
I didn't.
Yeah, you stumbled in the final sector. You clouted a couple of curves, ran wide. I'm going to say disallowed for track limits.
No, sorry guys.
DNQ.
Interpretive lines. All right. I skimmed the last 4 paragraphs, by the way. So, and that was of like 8 or something. Anyway, so
you're saying you got halfway around the lap?
Pretty much. No, but okay.
Pete, you binned it in the middle sector.
Out of the 20 qualifiers, where do you reckon I'd place?
23rd.
All right, mate. Moving on. So that's just fabulous. All right. Cheers, guys. We'll see you in the next section.
Not many people bin it and get into Q2 or Q3.
Yeah.
All right. Great. And flash. Transition.
Seamless. Didn't even see it.
No, but I'm going to leave that in. It's the transition. The budget's really good, guys. It's great. All right, so I gave my best efforts at getting through as much of the topics as we possibly could, but let's break it down a little bit further and find out some proper information and see what we all have to think on the matter. So starting off, we've got the swearing ban, and if you haven't heard what this is, well, Matt's about to fill you in, but there's been a lot of outrage over what is seemingly not a whole lot.
Yeah, I think you've summed that up pretty nicely, actually. This is basically the FIA tightening up some regulations around broadly misconduct, but that covers swearing. So, dropping an F-bomb or whatever over the radio or in a press conference will get you in hot water. Now, that's always been the case, but what's new is that in the latest publication of the International Sporting Code, and that's the document that basically fundamentally underpins motorsport globally, not just Formula One, but World Rally, World Endurance, even supercars if you're in Australia. There's a new appendix in that Appendix B, and that specifically covers a couple of articles, 5 or 6 articles within the International Sporting Code that relate to misconduct, and it offers a guideline, and only a guideline, on penalties that it thinks should be applied if one of those breaches happens. So if you swear in a press conference, the first instance you get a $10,000 fine, second instance you get a $20,000 fine, third instance you get a $30,000 fine, and the second and third instances there's suspended bans and then bans associated with those. And then there are multipliers depending on which level of championship you're in. Now that's obviously caught headlines because in Formula One you could potentially be in line for €120,000 fine and a month-long ban. That's absolute worst case scenario. Ultimately, what this is the FIA looking to crack down on abusive officials and just tidy up some of the stuff, bring a focus to, what is accepted and what isn't accepted, like we see in other sports. Abusing officials isn't allowed in football or tennis or rugby or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But it's some reason tolerated in motorsport. So it's just tightening up some of that, putting it into the spotlight in a way that it hasn't been before, and hopefully putting a little bit of a framework that can be ignored around stuff that we saw. So Max Verstappen got community service for swearing at a press conference last year. Charles Leclerc, for the same breach, got a $10,000 fine, half of which was suspended. And then for swearing over team radio, Yuki Tsunoda got, I think off the top of my head, it was a €40,000 fine at the Austrian Grand Prix. So it's putting some guidelines around that. Not hard and fast rules, because rules are already there. The rules haven't changed. It's just guidelines. And that's where we're at. And a lot of headlines have been made around this new appendix and that it is now a ban and that drivers or whatever will have the book thrown at them.
Yeah.
Because the FIA could potentially now use that and abuse the power that it allegedly now has.
Yeah. Yeah, Aaron?
I was going to say, I think the main point of conversation that I've seen on social media in particular, we can all agree swearing at officials not okay. We wouldn't be racing without them. Swearing at the in the stewards' room is completely unnecessary. I think it's those radio channels where kind of this controversy is coming into place, because where's the difference of swearing in general after you've just been hit by somebody at 300 kilometers an hour, swearing at a driver or swearing at the rules? I guess it does start to seem a little bit subjective, and as you said, the different amounts being fined based on what's being done seems very subjective. So from where I stand, that seems to be the main talking point. I'd be interested to know your thoughts on that, Matt. And again, with the TV broadcasters choosing the channels that they're playing on TV, well, that makes a huge difference. Is it on the broadcasters to not choose those channels where swearing has occurred?
This is the €120,000 question.
Yeah.
Is it a euro dollar?
Give it to you. No one heard it. Move on.
Yeah, $120,000 dues. The problem is the broadcast is produced by Formula One management, which is owned by Liberty Media, so it's a commercial rights holder. They have the right to broadcast team radio. The teams cannot opt out of that. Now, the radio, in my opinion, is a private conversation and should not be policed. We shouldn't be able to hear it. I don't think there is a reasonable argument that can be made beyond pure entertainment for us being able to hear team radio. You can't hear race control. That was kiboshed at the end of 2021. Idea. And for the same reason, I think the teams should be able to have their radio communications private as well, because now you get to a point where you and I are having a conversation, someone overhears us, saying a word they don't like. It doesn't even necessarily need to be, in an abusive context or derogatory or any of those sorts of things. And there's an argument to be made for a penalty. That's an extreme case, and it possibly will crop up. And the question around policing and where you draw the line is absolutely valid and needs to be asked and answered, I think, before the season gets going. Because everyone can listen to everyone's channel. The teams monitor their rivals' channels. So are they going to sit there and pummel race control or the stewards with requests for things to be reviewed? The one advantage that motorsport has is, take football, for instance, where if you use abusive language and the match official hears you, you've got one person as judge, jury, and executioner, in effect. In motorsport, you don't. You've got a panel of 4. They're removed from the action. They've also got an ability to investigate afterwards. So they don't have to make a decision right there and then. They can investigate, they can deliberate, and then they can pass a judgment. So you've got that delay, which is almost a positive, although in some instances it's a negative. It's a positive in that you shouldn't get these knee-jerk reactions. It should hopefully eliminate instances where the context in which something's said, or perhaps the language in which it's said, because we speak English, but who's to say something's not said in Spanish or French or Italian or whatever? There's all those loose ends that need to be tidied up. But this isn't aimed at Formula One. That's another key point here. This isn't aimed at Max Verstappen swearing. This is aimed at the junior categories, because at Formula One level, for most of those guys, €120,000, yeah, it's a big number, but it's not to them. I mean, Max Verstappen's just spent $80 million on a new plane. So nice. 120 grand is probably what fell down the back of the couch on the plane.
Yeah.
But at junior levels, if you're a Formula 4 driver, a €10,000 fine, that's a huge chunk of your program.
Yeah.
So you're going to think twice about the language that you use. And if you do overstep the line, you're going to feel it pretty hard. That's the intent here, not Formula One so much.
Yeah. And another big thing is the way that people have reacted, obviously, is chasing headlines and overreacting and taking what they're reading as gospel because of those headlines, right? And it's one thing leads to another. So people have this initial idea that it's a swearing ban. First of all, no. Okay. And then one thing leads to another. And now, we've had 2 sort of updates come out about this in a way. The first one being very official. We spoke about this on socials if you missed it. The actions against online abuse. And essentially, the FIA are joining many other sports in an initiative to stamp out online abuse against officials, drivers, what have you, which is damaging the sports, right? And this is sort of aligning with that in many ways, that if we can create a more positive environment for the entire sport, then that's not only going to be better for many fans, drivers as well will be less unlikely to be turned away from the sport, and officials, of course, as well, right? So we've had this sort of come in support of these changes and clear up the intention behind it. So that's the intention. Now we've had Ben Sulayem come out, I believe, in he had a press conference, I believe, in Spain, maybe it was, but he mentioned as we've spoken about, the live radios. And he said, well, is this a case where we don't broadcast them anymore? Do we shut down the radios? Which is a very valid conversation to be having. We're having it right now. We're saying, well, do you delay the radios and review everything before putting it out, having like a 2-minute, 3-minute delay between things said and being broadcasted? Or do we just not broadcast the radios at all? Ben Sulayem says this, and I'll credit where he's due. He's not done anything wrong here, but we're seeing on social media, I'm not sure if you've seen it, this morning I've woken up to many Formula One accounts saying all this stuff against Ben Sulayem for saying that he's going to take away the radios, and if that's your solution, you've lost it, and all these things about it being a damn dictatorship and all this stuff. It's really not. It's a valid conversation to be had. Do we keep radios in?
Well, in other sports, we can't hear what the footballers are saying to each other.
Yeah.
And you can't hear what the tennis players are muttering to each other at the net. It's a weird thing that we do have this aspect. And it's entertaining. It is entertaining. But if you're going to start chucking fines at people for what is said and it's not regulated properly, that call may just have to be made.
The other element to add to this is, FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem, he doesn't have the authority to ban team radio broadcast. He doesn't have that. Formula One management owns that right. So he can have an opinion. He's absolutely entitled to have an opinion. He's in a pretty informed position to have an opinion. But it is just his opinion. Yep. Formula One management has another opinion. I can tell you that I need to be careful how I say this. While there are monetary and potentially sporting ramifications for misconduct, there was a drive from one corner for more immediate sporting penalties. And that call has come from an unexpected source. I'm being very careful about what I'm saying here, obviously. But I know there were certainly conversations and a desire for more immediate sporting penalties. We're not talking, potential race ban for your third offence. We're talking time penalties.
Effective immediately.
We're talking drive-throughs, stop-goes, those sorts of immediate responses from officials.
Interesting.
And that is a call that did not come from Mohammed Ben Sulayem.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say any more than that because I'll get drawn on exactly where it came from. But it's it's fascinating that there is a desire from many different camps to stamp misconduct out.
What we're saying is this is an important matter and we needed to address it.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it comes into fruition, really.
This is, think about junior sport. If you go out there as a kid and you play junior sport and you go, you do something wrong or a foul gets called against you and you turn around to the official and say, you idiot, because that's the behavior that you've learned from watching your football or tennis or whatever heroes, you're going to model your behavior after theirs.
Yeah.
So if we correct it at the top end, it will filter down. And if we can, put some harsh penalties in there, we should be able to stamp it out reasonably quickly.
Yeah.
And you touched on it there with that survey that the FIA's led, the United Against Online Abuse stuff. It's athletes and officials are being driven away from the sport. No sport is big enough and strong enough to lose officials and competitors. We could be driving away the next Max Verstappen because Do we want that? Or do we want to welcome every possible competitor in the hope that we find the greatest competitor on the planet, supported and officiated by the greatest officials? That's what I want. And I don't want to put a barrier in front of them, through targeted online abuse from people who are misinformed, deliberately or otherwise. It just seems unnecessary, and this is just a logical thing to me.
I think, to recap, no one sees this as a bad movement, as you said, for those very reasons. It's not a bad way to go, as long as we can get some clear guidelines and have maybe a bit of a better understanding of how they're going to regulate it. I think that's what the fans really want.
That's next step for them, and we'll hopefully find that out in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure Koch will update us when he can of very intricate information that he's so kindly dabbled in, touched the toes in the water.
Just giving you a little taste. Just sprinkled a little something on it.
Yeah, a little sauce. But we'll find out more soon, I'm sure. So I think that covers it. Let's jump into the next topic, and let's try and flip through this as quickly as we can, because we've got a few fun little things to do later on. We've got a little segment called Did Not Qualify, but I guess we'll get to that in a minute. But the next topic is flexi-wings. Matt, why is this a talking point?
Basically, Formula One is governed by a set of regulations, sporting, technical, and financial. There's 3 documents, effectively. But as the game changes, those documents have got very regimented structures in terms of how you introduce new rules. And there's timelines around that and various bodies that things have got to go through. But if the sport needs to react more quickly, there's other ways to introduce particularly technical regulations. That's called a technical directive. It's an addendum to the technical rules that the teams must adhere to for their cars to be legal. Now, a new one of those, or an updated one of those, has been issued to teams. And that basically surrounds how much front and rear wings are allowed to move. Specifically, rear wings are tougher tests when the cars are in the garages to make sure that the wings, while on track, don't bend too much. Because the idea is, when you're in a corner, you want maximum grip. For that, you want high wing angles. But a high wing angle down the straight, if you're at Monza running Monaco level wing, you're going to be very slow. But conversely, if you're at Monaco running Monza level wings, you're going to be very slow and probably in the fence. So the idea is to strike that balance. That's what car setup is. That's largely what teams do during Friday practice. What the designers do in between events is come up with clever ways to have their wings bend and twist and flex so that at a certain speed, the wing is pushed down and it offers less drag, so it offers more top speed. So you get that balance. Yeah, just a little bit, a little mini DRS type thing if you're McLaren. And this this has happened for years. I can remember writing about this when Mark Webber was at Red Bull, for instance. So we're talking back 2010, thereabouts. We're talking 15 years. The difference is, as the game moves on, the FIA has to keep the FIA has to keep thanks for that. The FIA has to keep changing the load tests to keep up with the development of the thing. Because in Formula One, if you stand still, you're going backwards. The FIA has to live by that mantra as well. So it's just increase the load tests to keep up with where teams are at. The upshot being that we're potentially, firstly, the rear wing test gets introduced at the Spanish Grand Prix, so round 9 off the top of my head this year, and it has the potential to have a competitive influence or a sporting influence because McLaren and Mercedes, for instance, were exploiting this more than Ferrari and Red Bull.
So as far as the flexi wings goes, and that becoming more of an accepted part of the sport and the aerodynamic development, do you think that has encouraged some of the move towards the active aero that we're going to see in 2026 regulations, almost as a way to welcome it in a bit more of a consistent way across teams so that they're not looking for so many loopholes and little advantages? Whereas if you can standardize it across everyone where they don't have a reason to look for these sort of small advantages, then you're probably going to wipe out any complaints from other teams, and you won't have someone, like Alpine coming forward and saying, oh, well, McLaren's gaining an unfair advantage and all this stuff.
It's a good question, actually. The more I think about it, I was immediately going to say, no, it doesn't matter. But actually, what the sport has perhaps inadvertently done is gone down a development rabbit hole with flexi wings and discovered something that from 2026, Formula One will introduce movable aerodynamics. That's basically the front wing and the rear wing opening up or laying down or whatever you want to say at a certain speed. But yeah, they'll be doing these ones. My eyebrows when I'm confused.
Me whenever Matt talks about something complicated.
So what the sport's done is inadvertently, it hasn't gone looking for movable aerodynamic devices as a solution. It's sort of gone, well, that could be applied.
An opportunity.
Yeah, because next year we've got new power unit regulations and there's an increased reliance on electrification, hybridization of the power unit. About half of the power will come from the battery. The concern was that you get to the end of a long straight, you run out of battery, and you're going to have to downshift from 8th to 7th or even 6th gear to keep speed, which obviously isn't going to work. It's not very Formula One. So the idea was, well, let's reduce drag and you won't run out of battery. The way to do that is movable aerodynamics. So they've sort of created an opportunity for that. And in doing so, the offshoot of that is by allowing it, by opening up the regulations, you don't need to police it. This is one of my bugbears in Formula One is it's over-policed. You've now got financial regulations. You know, you've got a litre of monkey spit. Go and do with it what you can to make yourself the fastest car. I think, we need to lift some of these regulations off because they'll just naturally police. Like, things like curfew and whatever. It's just not necessary anymore. But, or more the point, part fermé, because curfew's there, is probably a better way to put that. So it's a response to a problem using a solution that's been found for something else, which is very Formula One, if I come to think of it.
It was going to kind of be my question, that is part of the sport not finding these tiny little advantages that might give you a 10th a lap.
Yeah.
Say McLaren found this new technology, other teams can replicate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the Brabham fan car, and this is, the Ford DFE and the monocoque. All these little incremental advantages, putting the engine in the back of the car like Lotus, like Cooper did rather, in the late 50s, or Auto Union in the 30s, if you want to come to it. All of these little step increments add up to something that's much bigger. And the problem is in Formula One, you don't see big outlandish swings anymore. So you don't see the Tyrrell P34 six-wheel car because, one, the rules don't allow it. And Formula One's a risk management business. You don't want to take that bigger risk in case it's horrible. I mean, look at the Mercedes Zero Pod, for instance. It didn't work. And that wasn't a huge gamble. That was a calculated gamble that backfired and cost the team 2 years or 3 years. Yeah. So the sport is now heavily policed to the point where you have to go looking for marginal gains. It's a term I love, marginal gains. Because if you can get enough 1%ers or 0.5% to add up to 2 or 3 or 4%, the sport's now so tight that 2 or 3 or 4% can be the difference between, look at McLaren, P nowhere midway through 2023 to Constructors' Championships just 18 months later. And they didn't find a lot.
But in my opinion, which could be maybe a potentially outdated one, is at the start of the year, you're given a rule book and she's laminated. And those are the rules for, let's say, that said year. If you are able to make these marginal gains that you're talking about, whether it's a flexi-wing, floor, aero, whatever you want to do, if you make these marginal gains, is it fair that the FIA or the stewards can step up and go, we don't like that? They haven't gone against the rules, Is it something that's kind of recapped at the start of every year? I think you should be able to advance and make these changes as the year goes on, as long as you're within the rules, because other teams have the same opportunity to do so as well.
Matt, you said to me the other day that F1 is, most categories is you can't do it unless it says you can. F1 is you can do it unless it says you can't.
Yeah.
Find the exploits.
Yeah, and that's what teams employ teams of designers and engineers for, to find the grey area. I mean, the double diffuser
of the rules.
The 2009 Brawn, developed by Honda, they found the grey area with that car, and they won a championship because of it. Brilliant piece of engineering, design, and interpretation. The line is when safety is an issue, and particularly with bendy wings. At some point, if a wing flexes enough or too much, perhaps it'll break. Some degree of air elasticity is normal. When you sit on a plane and you see the wings bounce, that's not a problem. It's by design. It's meant to do that, because if they're perfectly rigid, they will break and fall off, and that's not going to end well for anyone. Same in Formula One. If you have a perfectly rigid wing, it's going to break because these things vibrate like you wouldn't believe. So you need some flexibility in there. It's just teams are exploiting that. So it's setting an upper limit on what is acceptable. And the thing is, it's only going to be for 6 or 8 months anyway, because when we get to 2026, those sort of limits come off anyway.
So with them knuckling down on flexi-wings, we might see a little bit less straight line speed in 2025 across the board, but hopefully less complaints. And who really cares? Because in 2026, everyone's going to be flying. So
the rules, who cares? Let's just let them do what they want. I'm massively on board with that, for the record. But I think I'm
excited. I mean, it might be a little bit strange to adjust. It's not just as straightforward as DRS down the straight. They'll be a little bit quicker, and we'll find out how it all plays out. But time to move on to the fun segment. We're going to hand it over to our F1 expert, Matt Koch, who has a challenge for myself and Aaron.
Yeah, so I love my Formula One history. I love my Formula One trivia. I'm a nerd. I've got bookshelves full of stuff. Yeah,
really,
unsurprising, isn't it? But I like to term as do not qualify. And I know you guys are Formula One fans. You consume it a different way to what I do, which is fine. But I want to share a little bit of my love, a little bit of my lust for knowledge when it comes to Formula One, particularly the bizarre, the weird and the wonderful. So I'm going to ask you a little bit of a trivia question. I want true or false answer.
Oh, the old true or false.
It's 50-50 here. I'm looking good.
Yeah. Is there something on the line? Is there a point system?
We'll give you 1 point for the base question. If you can offer me any extra info, I think maybe we'll talk about bonuses and we'll negotiate that afterwards. It'll be like a, Max Verstappen.
Okay, so what I'm hearing here is we're going to be debating whether or not extra points. This is feeling very F1. We need to have some regulations, Matt.
Just watch your
Where's
language.
the rulebook?
It's the interpretation. I just realised that I've got a bloody spin wheel that's visible here. That's fine. Hey, if you ever want to use this, Koch, for a challenge, I got it.
Wheel of Fortune. Let's get Zach Brown in.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we can start our own Formula One team in the future. We've got one of these.
We'll win it by a go-kart from there.
Oh, now it clicked. It took us time.
I get it now. The price is right.
Yeah. Now, let's get into this. True or false? Only one driver in the history of Formula One has won the World Championship for both Ferrari and McLaren. And I asked this, obviously, because Lewis Hamilton, a world champion at McLaren, has just joined Ferrari in what he hopes is a quest that will lead him to a world championship there. So true or false, only one driver has won a world championship for both Ferrari and McLaren.
Do you know the answer?
Well, right off the bat, I think I know the answer to be either true or false, of course, but I'm not going to say which, though I feel like you obviously would know this as well. But the reason why I feel like I know it is because it was a significant enough piece of information that I've remembered it. And I've associated that with like being, oh, cool.
It's very vague.
Yeah, obviously, I'm not trying to give it away. I mean, I'm sure you know, Aaron probably has more historical F1 knowledge than I do. I think that's safe to say. I'm pretty in tune with the modern day.
You've talked me up now. If I get this wrong, that's going to be very embarrassing.
I haven't got any Koch's books anywhere around me, so...
I'll give you a hint. It wasn't Giuseppe Farina, mostly because he didn't win a championship. It wasn't Alberto Ascari either. Oh. So you can rule those two out.
Clues.
Well, we've weeded a few out.
So of the 30-something world champions that there's been since 1950, I've just excluded 2 for you.
Thank you
I'll give you a third one for free.
It really narrows it down.
It's not Lewis Hamilton, so that's good.
Not Lewis Hamilton
there you go. See,
yeah. Oh, Aaron wants Lewis.
Let's just keep zeroing in, and you'll get there. Or maybe.
All right. Well, I think I know my answer for the.
When you said it, my gut told me what I think the answer is. I've started second guessing myself, but I think I need to revert to the gut feeling.
Just gut feeling.
Because I know. No, I'm actually gonna be quiet as well because I don't want to give it away.
Brother, I've got my answer locked in, mate. I don't know what you're talking about.
So do I.
I think what we need to see here is some ping pong bats with true or false on either side, so you can just hold it up and show it.
I'd have to invest.
I could sort that.
Well, next episode, let's do that because that way
you guys are going to see some production just go through the roof.
the ping pong bat,
ping pong balls.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'll be ready.
Yep.
So we're
Here
going
we
to get a countdown?
Yep. I'll give you a 3, 2, 1, and then I want to hear your answers. All right.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, go.
True.
Oh,
We're in
True.
agreement for once.
For
Right.
once, yeah.
We don't agree on much.
We argue in the most.
all right.
I think, can you name who it is?
Yeah, let's go bonus points. Who do we think it is?
I'm in trouble here.
Okay. No, I think I'm pretty confident here.
Now, I spoke of my memory before, right? Applying significance. I'm a visual learner, so I'm trying to picture it. I don't have that great recall.
So Ethan, you're less confident. Aaron, are you particularly confident with this?
Fairly confident, but that has led me wrong in the past. So
So
I'm kind
let's let Ethan
No, we
say
say
his
time.
first. No, let's
Should I
let
write
Ethan
it
do
down?
his.
Should I write my answer down so I can't? Or are you
Yeah.
just going to get him to say it first?
No,
I'm
we'll
being
just get
bullied.
him
No,
to
then
say
you
it, yeah.
can't cheat the point.
Don't tell him if he's right or wrong,
All right.
but he's saying who he thinks,
Okay.
and then I'll say who I think.
I can't. I don't like the system here, guys.
It's the
I
system.
do.
If you
Unless
have an
I'm
issue-
wrong,
if you have
and
an
then
issue,
I
I'll
have
get
just-
your phone number, and
Alright,
you can call them. I think
You
it
should
goes
read
to-
it out for the viewers at home so they can call me. Hang on. Yeah, that's so weird. Anyway, I meant like harass me, not anyway.
Are you
Okay, so-
encouraging bullying online?
United against it, boys. Come on.
40,000 euros.
Yeah, I'm trying to claim my cash, boys. Come on. All right. So am I saying it on my own?
Yeah. So you say who you think it is, then Aaron will say who she thinks it is, and then I'll let you know if you're right, wrong.
The problem is
or
there's a couple faces in front of me, and I'm picturing a specific car which had the number 1 on it.
Mm-hmm. What color was the car?
Red. No?
Ferrari stands a chance.
Ferrari's red. That's good. That's good. So number 1 on a Ferrari. Okay.
Wow, yeah. So he's named a number 1 on a red car.
Well, you laugh here, Aaron, but we'll circle back to this.
Name the driver.
I don't know if it...
Come on.
You've got your point. This
Come
is
on.
just for a bonus point.
Okay, but
And I could be wrong too.
Alright, it's gonna be
I
wrong.
could be
It's gonna
wrong.
It's gonna be wrong. Only... mainly because I'm mental blanking on the other person.
A good game is a quick game.
Alright, 3, 2... I don't want to sound like an idiot. Alan Prost, but it's definitely wrong.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout. He won 4 world championships.
I know he won from
Okay.
McLaren and then he moved to
Okay.
Ferrari, but I'm not sure how that went.
Okay.
Tell you now, I've got a different driver in mind.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
take your
Aaron.
point.
Aaron,
Oh, you've got
who have
me
you got?
stressing. I am gonna lock. Oh, you've really got me stressing now. But no, I'm gonna stick my gut and lock in Niki Lauda.
Oh, there's...
All right, I can tell you one of you is correct and one of you is incorrect.
I'll see myself out.
Now, Ferrari, a little history lesson here. The world champion hasn't always carried number 1. So if you see number 1 on a car now, it's a good indication that they're world champion. But back through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, that wasn't always. So
This is not
back in
starting
the
well for me.
70s, you couldn't necessarily say that the Ferrari is the world champion or Niki Lauda was the world champion just because you see number 1 on his car.
Oh, was that a hint?
Yes, so I'm done, boys.
No, it's got
Alan
me
Prost
stressing now.
carrying number 1 is a really good logical conclusion to draw. I
Yeah.
mean, it's wrong, but it's a really good logical conclusion to draw. Because that car you're thinking of was 1990, the Ferrari 640 off the top of my head.
Did he
Alan
not
Prost
win?
won the World Championship in 1989 with McLaren.
Yeah.
That was it. All sort of went kaboom with Ayrton Senna. Prost
Yeah.
moved to Ferrari and took the number 1 with him.
And he
By the
didn't win when he was
1990s,
at Ferrari.
the number 1 and 2 followed the world champion. So
Damn
that's
it.
why you recognize number 1 on that car with Alain Prost. So it's a logical conclusion to draw.
Okay.
Doesn't get you the bonus point.
No.
Aaron does pick up the
No, it
bonus point
doesn't.
because it was
Yes.
Niki Lauda won 2 titles with Ferrari and then his third and final
That's
with
fine.
McLaren in 1984.
I've just lost all credibility. It's okay.
That's all right.
That's
You got 1 point. You weren't entirely. There was logic
I'll
there.
take it.
You've got history stretching back to the 90s. Some car and driver recognition there. So that's not bad.
Minimal.
Me knowing Matt for quite some time now, I know I'm going to take this win while I can because these true or falses
These
are
are just
just
gonna
going
get
to get
harder and
like
harder.
so out of hand. It is just going to be a shot in the dark in the future. So
Yeah.
I'll take
I
this.
look forward to that, that's for sure. Well,
Yeah.
round 1 done. Did not qualify. I'm 2-1 down. It's all right. We'll chuck the score up on the screen now, and you can track it as we're going forward. We'll leave
Do we have... I think we need to have a punishment for the loser or a prize for the winner.
Well, do we either decide it ourselves, or do we let the comments decide what that's going to be?
I
That
think
could
the
become
comments,
quite unhinged, but we'll
I like it. The
Monitors
more unhinged, the
within
better.
regulations.
I agree, because I'm completely out of this. I'm the quiz master.
Koch is licking his lips
Yeah,
right now. Going,
I'll-
this is great.
Bring it on, guys.
Koch should
I want
make this
some
decision.
weird. I'll be the arbiter of what is the.
I don't know if
the
I want
punishment.
to do what Koch tells me to.
Anyway,
No idea
mate,
what you
so
want me to
don't
do.
worry about it. But
I like this. So comment down below either a
Yeah.
prize for the winner or a punishment for the loser.
I wonder.
At the, what do we say, in the end of the season?
Yeah.
let's go to the end of the
Jeez,
season.
okay, end of the season, and
Got
Matt
12
is going to
months.
decide.
Keep
I'll
them
just change the rules.
coming.
I'll issue a
Yay.
technical directive and just change the penalty halfway through.
I might have to step in here, lads. Gets to the later end of the season and I'm absolutely screwed. We're going to have the FIA intervene. No, that's it. I'm happy with being one down for now because there's plenty more to come. So, guys, that's all we've got time for on this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in for the first episode of the Purple Sector podcast. We jumped into a few of the topics pre-season, but very soon we've got the first race in March in Australia. We'll be there ourselves, and before you know it, we'll have a lot more on-track action to talk about. I look forward to that myself. Thank you, Matt and Aaron, for joining us today. It's been great fun, and of course, let us know how your take on everything we spoke about in the comments down below. There's a lot of controversial things to get through, so please, let's have a chat, and make sure you hit a like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and check out our social media channels to stay up to date with everything as it comes first throughout the weeks. Thank you guys for joining us today, and we'll catch you in episode 2.
There.
Ciao.